it's Casey, and welcome to Casey at Night. Yes, we are once again together. It's time for another little bedtime story, and I'm so glad you could join me this week. Let's see, last week we read from London Seduction, which was my wonderful friend Joanna, and you guys seem to really like Joanna's story. Very, very tasty little morsel of a little bit of intrigue, a little bit of seduction in a hotel lobby. I kind of, as a reader of the story, not necessarily as a writer, but as a reader of the story, I kind of read it and thought to myself, wait, is she setting this whole thing up? Is she actually stalking Joe? Because if you think about it, excuse me, she mentioned, the fact that Joe wasn't there. I mean, she didn't call her by name, but she talked about the fact that she wasn't there. There was just her cup and her book. And so I kind of, when I read it for the first time, was like, maybe that really wasn't a date. But I've put the challenge to Joanna to give us some more of the story, because I do have a little bit more, but I want her to give us more, because once you guys get a taste of more, you're going to want more. So Joanna, your challenge is to give us more London Seduction. So again, everyone, thanks to Joanna Armstrong for London Seduction last week. And then I introduced us to some poetry, lyrical, which I stumbled on strictly by accident. People start following you, you follow them back, you peek at their stuff. And when I came across Marion, I loved reading her poems. And so we also had a little taste of Marion and her lyrical poem, which she happened to write about her husband, who on Twitter is Marcus Brooke. And as it turns out, last week when I read the poem that she wrote about her husband, it was their anniversary. So again, happy anniversary to the two of you. Thank you so much, Marion, for letting me share your love for Marcus with the rest of the world. So again, that was Marion T. Brooke. And you can read some more of her poetry. I've got some more Marion lined up in the future. Also, I try to encourage everyone to watch the videos if they haven't seen the videos, and I'm still in the process of perfecting all of this. So I just want to congratulate Joe and Marion, because at 9:55 we had gotten up to 740 viewers on the video, and that's really great. So I am also now in the process of trying to reintroduce you to some of my other friends. Terry Brooke, Terry, Terry, I do this every week, and I apologize, Terry. I've got Terry, I've got Bella, Des, Reed. I'm going to be bringing you Dr. Lola. I have Lola White. And so I'm going to reintroduce all of those videos, because just really great stories. I don't read anything that I am not personally interested in. So I want to reintroduce all of those videos to those of you who just started watching and may not have seen them. I think you will enjoy my other friends and their stories as well. So this week, oh no, wait, stop. So let me share with you. I'm gonna have a Casey moment. Okay, so this weekend I went out to dinner with some friends of mine who are, all right, just bluntly put, in the leather lifestyle. And we're going to talk about that more on a separate occasion. But, we had a really good time kind of playing icebreaker games and just chatting. And, everybody was at a different level of experience and knowledge. And because we were having such a good time, I found out that one of one of the attendees made the mistake of saying that she, after having been tied up at, one night at the Atlanta Eagles, she's like seriously into being tied, basically rope bondage, and she's now open to anything. And the young lady sitting to my right was like, wait, did you just say anything? And like literally her ears perked up, like, woohoo. And people tried to warn her, tried to warn the woman to my left, don't say that, don't say that. So long story short, on Facebook, we had this crazy back and forth of folks looking to be spanked, tied up, whatever the case may be. So it kind of just got really silly and so forth and so on. And ironically, the next day, I started having conversation with a couple of other ladies on Twitter. I won't call them by name, Jennifer and Sophie. And it ended up where I was going back and forth with them about spanking. And next thing you know, they brought Amber Sky into this whole conversation. And so it kind of led me to, to a place where I'm like, I'm really, really, really into the ropes. I'm really into rope bondage. And once and for all, I'm just going to learn. I've assisted, but I'm just going to flat out learn on my own. So today, or I should say a few days ago, I ordered some rope, and my rope came today. I love Amazon. Okay, so in the near future, you are going to see Casey's knotting experience as I develop and grow. So I'll be looking for volunteers to practice on, to demonstrate with, but I am so looking forward to developing my rope skills. Okay, now we can move forward. So this week's story is, as I've been posting for the last 5 hours, from a Harem Boys saga by Jung, or Bernard Fung. Here we go. This is the author on Facebook, and he and I kind of stumbled on each other about a year ago. And when I read his story then, again, as I've said multiple times, I love the way he writes this story and the fact that it's his personal story. And so I've found it very intriguing. And when I started doing the readings, I thought, I got to get him on here. I got to get something from him. So he's actually given me 2 chapters from his book, and I'm going to give you 1 chapter this week, and I'm going to follow up with the 2nd chapter next week. Because I think normally I probably wouldn't do this, but this 2nd chapter, I thought, oh my God, let's just put it this way. It reminds me a little bit of the party scene I wrote about in my story, The Encounter with Kendra, and the fact that there's all these things going on that kind of create this sensory experience. And so in this 2nd chapter that Jung gave me, it's kind of that same thing. It's this party experience that is beyond imagination. So I am going to bring you the 2nd chapter next week. But this week, again, we're going to be reading Unbridled from a Harem Boys saga. And I want to share with you Jung's bio. So it says, Jung, alias Bernard Fung, is first and foremost a sensitivist. He finds nuance in everything. To experience the worlds he inhabits is an adventure which is mystical, childlike, and refreshing. He has a rare ability to create beauty in a unique fashion. His palettes have been material, paint, words, and human experiences. Fung is currently writing Metonia, book 5 of his autobiographic 5 to 7 book series, Mr. Fung's Young Life, a Harem Boys saga, a memoir by Jung. This provocative story spanning 4 decades and 3 continents is about a boy who was sent to a very exclusive English boarding school in the 1960s, where he was initiated into a clandestine sexual society and then spirited away to serve in wealthy and elite Middle Eastern harems. Now, I got to know Jung a little bit when I first met him, and this bio is concise, as bios should be. However, I really encourage you to get to know him a little bit more, because where it talks about his palettes have been material paint words, when you learn a little bit more about him, you find that is so vague in terms of the depth of his creative mind, which is, I think, part of why I fell in love with his writing. And then to say that he was initiated into a clandestine sexual society, I think probably even puts it mildly, because again, having read, like he gave me 2 chapters to share with you all, but having read, more of his story, it is enthralling. You get caught up in the everything of it. Even though he's from another culture, there's so much similarity in culture that I literally fell in love with the story, fell in love with his storytelling, and was fascinated just by the concept of being groomed to be a part of a harem. It's mostly a boy thing, but there are some girls. And so you kind of learn about something that had been going on in the shadows not that long ago, but kind of, it exists in a world where it should not exist. And that was another one of the things I learned in terms of culture. So like when he talks about being in service to elite Middle Eastern harems, if you know anything about the Muslim culture, this is like an absolute no-no. But from the other side, for those who indulge, there is no limits. They go all out in terms of their experience. And I think he does a beautiful job, Jung that is, does a beautiful job of sharing what that experience is like. So for today's reading, we're reading Hickory Dickory Dock. Some things are so unexpected that no one is prepared for them. Let me change my angle here. This works a little better for me. 1967, an unfortunate predicament. The following day, after regular tutorials with Monsieur Dubois, Andy and I pulled Gudrun and Adolphe aside to ask what had transpired the night before at the Marquis's chambers. The Swede gave us an egregious smile, causing my valet to raise an eyebrow. "Tell us, what happened, Gud?" he insisted. "What did you do to the Marquis?" The valet took his time to respond as he flipped nonchalantly through the pages of a magazine. He was obviously keeping us in suspense. Alf couldn't wait. He blurted, "Good," blindfolded, and bound his hands behind his back while I fucked him. Did he realize it was the 2 of you and not Andy and me? How did he react? I questioned. Alf's guardian replied, "I don't think he knew it was us. The rooms were dark. He probably thinks it was you and Andy. I think he was surprised by the turn of events. He probably wanted to play the sadist with you, but he ended up the passive party instead. He was still tied up when we left his chambers." Good laughed, as the Marquis deserved to be bound after their sexual assignment. A look of alarm came over Andy's face. "You did what? You tied him up and left him there? With him thinking it was me? You hellion, leaving me to get the blame for your actions," Andy exclaimed. "Well, mate, you were the one who asked us to substitute for the 2 of you. You, mate, should be thanking us instead of reprimanding me for leaving the sadomasochistic Matthew in bondage. He probably loved the rough treatment." Just then, Monsieur Dubois passed by the corridor. He heard the effervescence and inquired, "What's the ebullience, boys?" The Swede replied, "Oh, It's something amusing Alf and I did last night. Andy is afraid that he may have to shoulder the blame. You boys better not have played some prankish game with any of our guests. They are serious investors and are here for our master's investment projects. You guys better tread with caution and respect the visitors. Your métier is to make their stay welcoming and entertaining. You understand me? My teacher said authoritatively. Good and Elf quieted down, nodded their heads, and promised the professor that they would behave in an edified manner before disappearing down the hall. As soon as the duo was out of sight, Elaine inquired what was the real reason for the jubilant outburst. My valet explained anxiously what had transpired at Matthew's chambers the previous evening. Dubois cried, "It's too late to change this unfortunate outcome now. You'll have to wait to see what the Marquis will do. Meanwhile, I'll try and think of an eloquent solution." He continued, "Also, Ikram wants to see the both of you as soon as possible." "Why does he want to see us?" my valet asked. "I have no idea. I presume he wants to discuss the carousel with you," my teacher surmised. An unexpected revelation. I could tell Ikram wasn't in the best disposition as soon as we entered. His usual effervescence had turned south. In its place was a tetchy Arab, slobbering precipitously over a table of design drafts. Andy inquired, "You asked to see us, sir?" The Arab didn't speak, and he stood by the desk as if seething with displeasure. He finally grasped demandingly, "Where were the two of you last evening?" Sir, we were attending His Highness's function." "You were there." "You saw us," my guardian replied. "Why didn't you heed my summons to be in the library?" the interior designer demanded. Andy and I looked at one another, amazed that we had finally discovered the true identity of the mystery admirer. I uttered, I'm sorry, sir. I didn't know the gift and request were from you. They weren't any indications of who it was or an appointment time. When we met at the event, you gave us no indication of your summon." Ikram declared, "It is not that I beckoned you, but somebody close to me is interested in the two of you." I stared at Andy for a response. He enunciated, "May we know who this special person who desires to see us is?" "Go to the library this evening, and the answer will be waiting for you. Take heed and be there at the appointed time. This person will not take too kindly to you if you miss the summons again. You understand me?" "Yes, sir. We will be there. May we know the name of this illustrious person so that we may better prepare to attend his or her needs." My guardian was trying to gain some insight into our summoner's identity. "No," the Arab stated abruptly. On that authoritative command, he dismissed Andy and I. Back to square one. Once again, we were at a loss. We had no idea who our mysterious admirer was. When we arrived back at the Elixir, two glossy boxes embossed in gold with the word Hommes Provocateurs sat waiting for us inside the entrance door. Within the larger container were the following: a black leather chest harness, a form-fitting pair of leather pants with the groin and derriere areas removed, a black leather half mask with 2 holes for the eyes, a pair of black stormtrooper boots that fitted Andy perfectly, a black leather horsewhip, a pair of solid gold handcuffs. These items were obviously meant for my valet. In the smaller box was another set of artifacts that consisted of a glossy black, form-fitting, rubberized pair of shorts with a Velcro front. On the trousers were 2 flaps that could be ripped away instantaneously, revealing the wearer's crotch and backside. A black Hermes silk scarf, printed in gold with images of saddles, horses, and riding crops. The scarf could be folded into a blindfold. A pair of rubberized thigh-high boots made to fit my foot size. A black and gold candle laid neatly next to a solid gold cigarette lighter. Beside these tidily wrapped articles was an oversized black dildo and a jar of lubricant. There was also a pair of solid gold nipple clamps and a rubberized half mask that fitted snugly around the upper part of my face. These articles were obviously meant for me. Beside the list of sadomasochistic paraphernalia were two black, finely woven hooded robes with long slits that ran down the front to below the navel. These monk-like coverings were meant to be worn over the leather and rubberized clothing. My lover and I turned the boxes inside out before we finally found a fancy black envelope trimmed with gold edges. Enclosed was a white note card. Embossed in gold lettering were the words, "You are invited to a gathering of the Canterbury Tales of Bawdy Rhymes. You'll be asked to recite this rhyme at the library. Jack be nimble, Jack be quick. Jack sizzles while the candles drip. See you at the bewitching hour. Once again, no signature was scripted below the invitation. My lover and I scattered our heads in bafflement, wondering who could have sent such an unconventional invitation with these incredulous gifts. The only person we could think of was Marquis Matthew. After all, he was the only person who had toyed and flirted with me about sadomasochism. Does that mean Matthew was pleased with his evening's rendezvous with Gudrun and Alf? I questioned Andy inquisitively. I presume so. Who would send such gifts besides the Marquis? My lover continued with obfuscation. Does that mean he wants to see us this evening? He must desire an anomalous replay of his previous night's experience, I thought aloud. Andy continued to scratch his head. I give up. I hate this cat and mouse game. I don't know what we should do. Maybe we should consult Professor Dubois again, I suggested. Andy gave an anguished sigh. I hate having to consult Elon at every turn. I am old enough to figure out these games without having to run to your teacher for advice. I want to be able to protect you on my own. You, my precious, are my beloved and my charge. I'll make sure no harm comes to you, even if I have to protect you with my life. When I saw him in such a state, I felt a sudden surge of affection for my lover. 3 minds are better than 2. Besides, Elon has more experience than either of us. He completed Eros and the Harem programs and is also my learned teacher. He should be able to advise us on how best to proceed. Don't you agree? After much persuasion, my guardian finally capitulated before we trotted off to consult Elon, who proved as perplexed as we were. My teacher's only advice: there are no classes tomorrow on Holy Friday. I'm sure all will be revealed to you when you go to the library at the bewitching hour of 1 a.m. There's nothing to lose. Go, experience the adventure. Hickory-dickory-dock. The mice ran up the clock. The clock struck 1. The mice ran down. Hickory-dickory-dock. Dressed in the ludicrous garb beneath our black hooded robes, Andy and I arrived at the large ornate library doors. 2 unfamiliar-looking burly Arabs stood guard on either side of the entrance. One of them opened the locked door to let us into a dimly candlelit room. A group of people in attire similar to ours were already scattered around the room. They seemed as flummoxed as we were. All of them were hooded and wearing leather half masks that exposed only their eyes and the lower sections of their faces. I recognized them instantly. They were the 4 French aristocrats, Charles, Marie-Laure, Matthew, and Pierre. Next to the Baron were Sebastian, Ludovic, Gudrun, and Adolphe. At a corner of the expansive chamber, Didi, Elizabeth, Karina, and Matui were muttering amongst themselves in low voices. Last but not least, Alain stood next to the Marquis. Neither my valet nor I had any idea that Dubois was part of this clandestine assembly. We were aghast at his presence, since he had given us no indication that he was an invitee to this unorthodox escapade. As we stood ruminating, several fully masked overseers entered through a large side entrance. One of them, the premier, sat alone some distance away from us, guided by two of Ikram's handlers, Makut and Khatun. The other four principals came to join our entourage. They stood in the middle of our circle, which seemed to have opened automatically. Under their full or half mask, I recognized them as Abdullah, Fidha, Ikram, and Ibram, the third of the Khanith's handsome bodyguards. I couldn't help but wonder who the mysterious person sitting at the far corner was. He sat motionless, as if a silent spectator of a pugnacious game. In perfect English, Ibram announced, "I'll give you each a sign to recite aloud, the rhyme you've been assigned. Then you are to step into the center of the circle to participate in a pleasurable game of sensual and sexual gratifications." My valet and I looked at each other in astonishment. Neither one of us, for that matter, any of the visitors or foreign students, knew what would happen next. The mysterious observer voiced decisively, "Let the games begin." And so ends chapter 49. But come back next week and I will share with you chapter 50, which is entitled "Let the Games Begin." As I said, it is a decadent party that unless you get invited to one, you are never going to hear about one. And I promise you, this is definitely a fantasy experience that, heck, if I could find someplace throwing a party like this, I'm going. Not even going to pretend about it. I'm going. So I want to again thank Jung Bernard Fung for letting me share from his Harem Boy Saga. I'm going to read the next chapter to you next week, along with my featured author for next week, Luscious Lee. Where's my notes? I'm sorry. Luscious Lee. Luscious Lee's story is entitled Room 222, and it's a collection of short stories, and I think I've mentioned her before. What I liked about this particular book is all the little stories take place in room 222. It is the nastiest of motel rooms, but I think there's a realism in the fact that there's so many experiences that take place in these nasty little hotel rooms for varying reasons. And I've read quite a few of the shorts. I haven't read them all, but I picked one to read next week called Appearance is Not Truth. And this is how you can find Luscious Lee and possibly read some of her other stories. But next week we're going to be doing Room 222, Appearance is Not Truth. Again, I love stumbling onto these writers while just kind of doing what I do every day on Twitter and introducing to you as well as myself some of the different stories, the different writing styles. And again, I'm looking forward to bringing you Luscious Lee and Room 222. And I will be bringing you, and I think I mentioned, I begged on your behalf for a Fuda story from my friend Reed James, and I haven't put it in my calendar yet, but I'm going to be bringing you a Fuda story. Okay, I know I seem to obsess about the Fuda story. I'm sorry. It is the most fascinating concept, and I can't wait to share it with you because I'm curious as to what you know your perception of the Fuda stories is going to be. I found them quite fascinating. And let's see, what else? What other notes do I have? I think that's it for my notes. And I just want to thank you because this has been, again, I say this every week, it's so much fun for me to bring you these stories, for me to share my stories with you, and for my friends to let me read their stories, and for my new friends to let me read their stories. And I'm hoping that you guys are enjoying the stories because it is a lot of fun for me to do this with you. So For those of you who aren't following me yet, I would love it if you would. This is how you can find me, at Read Casey Carter. And if you want to catch more of who Casey Carter is, you can go to my site, caseycarterbooks.com. Over the summer, I'm going to be transitioning into Instagram as well. So we'll be doing some videos and some lifestyle activities on Instagram. Before I go, see, and this is why I have notes, because I wrote this down. I talked about the ropes, but I'm also supposed to talk about the Corvettes. Okay. And I know I just totally went to like the left for a second, but I just have to go there because I read an article while I was at work that talked about the Corvette Museum is shutting down for 18 months because, rumor has it, they are going to be introducing a mid-engine Corvette and possibly introducing a ZR1 Corvette. Now, for some of you, you just completely tuned out because you're like, the hell is she talking about? Okay, the reason why this is relevant is because, as you know, my favorite character, Kendra, is a Corvette fiend. She is a fanatic for her car, and she currently drives a yellow Z06, which at the moment, is it is the power in a Corvette right now. Corvette is introducing a Grand Sport, I think imminently, but like I said, they're closing the museum in Kentucky so that they can, rumor has it, retool the factory so that they can produce a mid-engine Corvette. Now, understand, for those of you who don't do cars, and I am, please, by no means a car expert, I do know enough to know we don't have mid-engine cars in the US. So this is going to be a big deal if it finally comes to fruition. Those of you who are Corvette fans, Corvette aficionados, you know better than I, they've been talking about this for years. I honestly, it just got on the bandwagon a few years ago. I'm mad that I just got on the bandwagon a few years ago. But I am now a true believer, and while I may not necessarily be on the mid-engine bandwagon, I do, however, believe in the fact that it is a transition in sports cars that is going to be huge for Corvette. So yes, I spent some time yesterday talking about the Corvette. And Ty, you gonna have to get over it, baby, because that's my jam, and I'm gonna talk about it. And so I will no longer invite you into my Corvette conversation because this is gonna go on for a while. I'm going to be posting pictures. I'm going to be texting about it. You're going to be sick of me in the Corvette, but I just want y'all to know, I love this car, and love the idea that they're going to be introducing something that's just going to take them head and shoulders over everyone else. There's this subtle competition between, say, the muscle car and the Corvette. And again, I am not articulate enough to fully engage in that conversation, but I just know for the Corvette clientele, I know you guys are sitting there, bated breath, rubbing your hands together, can't wait because you've been talking about this for years. So I want to say to all of you Corvette aficionados, I'm right there with you. I'm jumping in the conversation. I am fully ready to be educated for whatever dumb things I may say for my lack of knowledge. But, oh my God, can I just say, I posted a picture yesterday of car, the possible C7 ZR1. It had all these swirls on the car, some crazy paint job, stickers, decals, whatever it is. As crazy as I am, because I do love the yellow, I'm like, I'll take that car. Can I get that one? Because clearly, if you give me a ZR1, that's a big deal. Huge, because there aren't a lot of ZR1s. So we're going to talk about the Corvette because that's Kendra's thing. That is a very significant part of who Kendra is, and we're going to talk about it. So I'm sorry. I apologize. I went on a tangent. You're going to have to suck it up because I love that car. Love that car. Had the experience of driving one in Vegas. Ooh, I'm going to pull out the video. You got to see me driving at 118 miles an hour on the track in Vegas. That's a different kind of orgasm, y'all. I'm just saying. If you have never driven a sports car that fast, you've not had a moment of nirvana, of not being worried that this car may go off the road, of just being there, a part of that car as it slides through the track, doing what it do. Oh my God. All right, I'm sorry. Just give me 1 minute. Anyway, I'm going to find the video of that, and I'm going to share some of that with you because that was a fabulous experience. I had the chance to drive a yellow C7 Z06, and I had the chance to drift in a vet. Let's talk about that for a second. Vets, drifting. When was the last time you saw that? I got video of that too. I'm going to have to dig all of these things out for you and show you that Miss Casey don't just write about stuff isn't a fantasy. Miss Casey be about her stuff. So anyway, having said all of that, I want to thank you again for joining me tonight. You can visit my website to catch more videos, to catch the videos you may have missed, to catch my stories, to learn about the sexual rainbow. And next week we've got Luscious Lee and Room 222. And we've got the next chapter that I'm going to share with you from Bernard Young and a Harem Boys Saga. So, thank you again for joining me tonight. I'm so glad you could be with me. I'm so glad you're with me every week. And I look forward to having you again. And, you know, as I like to say, I love you like a fat kid loves cake. Bye.